I took the ranger job because Tacoma wasn't working anymore. That's the simplest way to say it. The city felt smaller every week, and not in a good way. I'd been married for 6 years, divorced for 1, and I kept running into people who asked how I was doing in that careful voice people use when they already know the answer. My apartment went to Claire in the split. Made sense. She'd picked it out. I moved my stuff into Michael Daniels' spare room, which turned into his couch after about a month when his sister needed the room. He didn't complain. I tried not to either. I spent most of that year on his couch, applying to things, watching afternoon TV I didn't care about, eating cereal for dinner because cooking felt like too much effort for just me. The days blurred. I'd wake up, check my phone, send out another application, and then it'd be dark again. Michael worked late most nights, IT stuff for some firm downtown, so I had the place to myself. That should have felt like freedom. It just felt empty. When the National Park Service listing came through, I almost deleted it. Seasonal work, backcountry assignment, housing provided, Olympic National Park. I'd never worked for the parks before. My background was in forestry, some conservation survey work, nothing that made me an obvious fit. But it was far enough from Tacoma that I wouldn't accidentally run into anyone I knew, and the idea of spending months in the rainforest sounded better than another month on Michael's couch. So I applied. Figured I wouldn't hear back. They called me 2 weeks later. The woman on the phone said her name was Donna Warner and that she was the supervisor for the Forks district. She asked if I could start in 3 weeks. I said yes before she finished the sentence. Michael helped me pack my truck on a Tuesday morning. Didn't take long. Most of my stuff was still in boxes from the divorce. He handed me a dented hydro flask and told me not to be a stranger. I said I wouldn't. We both knew I probably would be. The drive to Forks took about 4 hours. Trees started outnumbering buildings once I passed Port Angeles, and by the time I hit the turnoff, the sky had gone gray and low. It rained the whole last hour. Not hard, just persistent. The kind of rain that doesn't stop. Ranger housing was a small cluster of cabins about 2 miles from the station, tucked into the tree line off a gravel access road. Mine was at the end. Single room, kitchenette, bathroom with a shower that dripped. Bed frame, table, 2 chairs, clean, but worn. I dropped my boxes on the floor and sat on the bed for a minute. It creaked. The window looked out at Douglas firs and not much else. Quiet. I unpacked that night. Didn't take long. Clothes in the dresser, toiletries in the bathroom, books on the floor next to the bed because there wasn't a shelf. I found a can of soup in one of the boxes, something I'd grabbed from Michael's pantry, and heated it on the stove. Ate it standing up. Then I lay down and stared at the ceiling until I fell asleep. The Forks Ranger Station was bigger than I expected. 2-story wood and stone, with a visitor center on the ground floor and offices upstairs. I reported at 7 in the morning on my first day. Donna met me in the hallway outside her office. She was shorter than I'd pictured, maybe 5.5 feet, with black hair pulled tight and eyes that didn't blink much. She shook my hand once, firm, and told me to follow her. Her office was small and organized, everything labeled. Clipboard on the desk, radio charging on the shelf, map of the district pinned to the wall with color-coded markers. She sat behind the desk and motioned for me to sit across from her. "You've done survey work?" she said. Not a question. "Yeah, mostly timber assessments, some wildlife tracking. Backcountry experience?" "Enough." She looked at me for a second. Then she nodded. "This isn't a survey. You'll be checking permits, logging trail conditions, turning back visitors who shouldn't be out there. You'll file reports every shift. They need to be accurate. If something happens in the backcountry and your report doesn't match the conditions, that's everyone's problem. Understood?" "Understood." "Good. You'll spend the first 2 weeks on day shifts, shorter routes. Learn the area. After that, we'll see." That was it. She handed me a park radio, a laminated map, and a duty roster. Told me to check in at the front desk and get my uniform sorted. I did. The first 2 weeks were exactly what she said. Day shifts, shorter routes. I checked permits at trailheads, made sure people had the right gear for the terrain, logged conditions in a notebook that got transcribed into the system at the end of every shift. Most visitors were fine, prepared, respectful, just there to see the rainforest and move on. But there were always a few who thought the rules didn't apply to them. A guy in sandals and a tank top told me he didn't need a permit because he was only going a few miles. I explained that a few miles into the Ho corridor still required a permit. He argued. I didn't budge. He left annoyed. A family with a kid, maybe 6 years old, wanted to hike to the glacier overlook. It was a 12-mile round trip with elevation gain and weather coming in. I suggested a shorter trail. The dad got defensive. Said they knew what they were doing. I told him the park required certain gear for that route and asked to see it. They didn't have it. He called me a bureaucrat. I let him. They turned back. That kind of thing happened maybe 3 or 4 times a week. People treated the easy access like it meant easy consequences. It didn't. The forest didn't care if you thought you were tough. I learned the rhythm fast. Radio check-ins every 2 hours, report trail conditions, visitor counts, anything unusual. File the written log at the end of shift. Make sure the paperwork lined up with the radio calls. Donna reviewed everything. I don't know if she slept. Every report I filed came back with notes. Small things. A time that didn't match. A trail marker I'd logged wrong. She didn't yell, just corrected. It kept me sharp. The other rangers were fine. Polite but busy. I didn't push for conversation. I was there to work, and they seemed to appreciate that I didn't slow them down. I ate lunch alone most days, usually in my truck or at a trailhead bench. Dinner was back at the cabin. Soup, sandwiches, whatever I could make without thinking about it. I called Michael once, told him I was settling in. He asked if I liked it. I said it was different. That was true enough. After 2 weeks, Donna called me into her office again. Same setup. Clipboard, radio, map. She told me to sit. "You've been consistent," she said. "No complaints. Paperwork's clean. Thanks. I'm moving you to longer shifts, deeper routes. The backcountry work we can't handle from a desk." She paused, looked at the map on her wall. "Melvin Calderon is going to train you. He's been here 5 years, knows the corridors better than anyone. You'll shadow him for the next week, maybe 2. Learn the protocols. After that, you'll run routes solo." I nodded. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow, 0600. He'll meet you at the North Trailhead." Got it. She handed me a new duty roster, longer shifts, routes I hadn't run yet, names I didn't recognize. I folded it and stood. "Emmett," she said. I stopped. "Out there, mistakes compound. If something feels wrong, you report it. You don't wait. You don't assume it'll resolve itself." "Understood." She nodded, dismissed me. I left the station and drove back to the cabin, sat at the table and looked at the new roster. Tomorrow I'd meet Melvin. Tomorrow the real work started. I should have felt nervous. Mostly I just felt ready. Ready to be somewhere that wasn't Tacoma. Somewhere the rules were clear and the work mattered and I didn't have to explain why I was starting over. I made dinner, went to bed early, set my alarm for 5. The forest was waiting. 2 weeks in, Donna called me into her office again. Different from the last time. She didn't sit, just stood by the wall map with her arms crossed and told me I'd be going out with Melvin that afternoon to swap batteries at a backcountry radio repeater above Elk Lake. I nodded, figured it was part of the training rotation. She'd mentioned equipment maintenance during my first briefing, but we hadn't gotten to it yet. 6 miles in, she said. Steep grade the last 2. You'll carry the fresh batteries. Melvin knows the route. Got it. She looked at me for a second. Not unfriendly, just measuring. He'll brief you on protocols when you're out there. Listen to what he says. I will. Good. She handed me a printed route sheet with elevation markers and GPS coordinates. Meet him at the Ho River Trailhead at 1300. Don't be late. I wasn't. I got there at 12:45. Melvin was already waiting by his truck, a green Park Service F-250 with mud caked halfway up the doors. He was maybe 5'11", solid build, the kind of guy who looked comfortable in boots and a weathered cap. He didn't smile when I walked up, but he wasn't cold either, just direct. "You bring water?" he asked. I held up my pack. 3 liters. "Good. We'll be out 4 hours, maybe 5 if the trail's bad." He opened the bed of his truck and pulled out a black nylon case about the size of a shoebox, heavy from the way he handled it. "Batteries. You carry these. I've got the tools." He passed the case to me. I clipped it to the outside of my pack and tightened the straps. "Let's go," he said. We started up the Hoh River Trail just after 1. The first mile was easy. Flat, mostly, with the river running loud and fast to our left. Moss hung thick on everything. Branches, rocks, fallen logs. The kind of green that looked fake if you weren't used to it. I was still getting used to it. Melvin didn't talk much, just kept a steady pace, boots hitting the trail in a rhythm that felt automatic. I followed about 10 feet behind, trying to match his stride, trying to look like I belonged out there instead of feeling like the new guy tagging along. I'd done trail work before, surveys mostly, counting saplings, marking invasive species, that kind of thing. But this was different. The weight of the pack felt different. The quiet felt different. The fact that we were 6 miles from the trailhead and nobody else was out here felt different. I didn't say any of that, just kept walking. Around mile 2, the trail started climbing. Not bad at first, but steady. My breathing got heavier. Melvin's didn't. He just kept that same pace. Boots finding holds on roots and rocks without looking down. I focused on my footing, on keeping up, on not tripping over something stupid and proving I didn't know what I was doing. The trees got thicker, taller. The light came through in patches now, gray-green and soft. Everything smelled like wet bark and dirt. We hit mile 3 and Melvin stopped. I almost walked into him, caught myself a step back and adjusted my pack straps. Figured he was checking the route or taking a water break. He wasn't doing either. He just stood there for a second, looking at the trail ahead. Then he turned and reached into his vest pocket. "You got a minute?" he asked. "Yeah." He pulled out a laminated card, about the size of an index card, maybe a little bigger. The lamination was scratched and worn around the edges, like it had been in and out of pockets for a while. He handed it to me. I took it, turned it over. The top of the card said Olympic Corridor Field Protocols in bold black text. Under that, a list, 8 lines, numbered. I read it. 1. Don't drink water that runs uphill. 2. Don't answer if someone uses your full name. 3. Keep orange survey tape in your right pocket. 4. Turn around if a second set of your boot prints appears. 5. Don't use a headlamp on strobe. 6. Ignore trail signs with fresh screws. 7. Pull the battery if your radio turns on by itself. 8. Don't take coins from a neat pile. I looked up at Melvin. He was watching me, not smiling, not joking. "Every new ranger gets it," he said. "You need to follow it." I glanced back down at the card, read the first line again. "Don't drink water that runs uphill." Then the second. "Don't answer if someone uses your full name." It sounded half like superstition and half like safety training. The kind of thing you'd expect from a guy who'd been in the woods too long and started seeing patterns that weren't there. But Melvin wasn't laughing. Wasn't waiting for me to ask if this was a joke. "Okay," I said. He nodded. "Keep it on you. Don't lose it." "I won't." "Good." He turned and started walking again. I stood there for another second, looked at the card one more time. The lamination was clear enough that I could see faint creases underneath, like it had been printed and reprinted a few times before someone decided to make it permanent. I slipped it into my chest pocket, zipped it closed. Then I followed Melvin up the trail. I didn't ask him about it. Didn't crack a joke or try to get him to explain what half the rules even meant. Water doesn't run uphill. That was basic physics. A second set of my own boot prints didn't make sense unless someone else was wearing my exact boots, which also didn't make sense. But I kept the card. Part of me figured it was veteran humor, the kind of thing you hand the new guy to see if he'll take it seriously or laugh it off. A test, maybe, or just tradition. The other part of me noticed that Melvin didn't smile when he gave it to me, so I kept it, and I didn't ask. The next afternoon, I was out near 5 Mile Island by myself. First solo shift. Donna had cleared me after the week with Melvin and given me a standard day route on the Ho corridor. Check permits, scan for trail issues, log visitor counts. Basic stuff. The morning had been quiet. I'd checked 3 groups by noon, all with proper permits and decent gear. One couple asked about bear activity and I told them what I knew, which wasn't much yet. They thanked me and kept walking. Around 2, I was maybe half a mile past the island when I spotted the spur trail. It wasn't on my map. I stopped and pulled the laminated sheet from my chest pocket to confirm. The main trail ran straight here. No offshoots marked. But there it was, branching left into the trees with a wooden sign at the entrance. The sign looked new. Fresh cut wood, pale where the saw had gone through. The edges were clean, and the post stood straight in the dirt without any lean. Someone had installed it recently. Maybe yesterday. Maybe that morning. It didn't have any text. Just an arrow carved into the face, pointing down the spur. I figured it was probably a maintenance reroute. Sometimes crews put up temporary markers when a section of trail gets damaged or needs work. Washouts, downed trees, that kind of thing. They don't always update the maps right away. I stood there for a minute trying to decide. Protocol said, stick to the route and log anything unusual. But if this was a legitimate detour and I didn't know about it, I'd look like an idiot telling visitors to ignore it. I checked my watch. 2:07. I had time. I keyed my radio. Forks. This is Ranger Williamson at 5 Mile Island plus .5. Found an unmarked spur trail with new signage. Checking it out. Over. Static, then Donna's voice. Copy that, Williamson. Keep it brief. Over. Will do. Out. I clipped the radio back to my belt and started down the spur. The first 20 yards or so felt normal. Dirt path, moss on the rocks, same trees. I kept my eyes on the trail looking for boot prints or tool marks. Anything that would tell me maintenance had been through. Didn't see much. The ground was soft from yesterday's rain, but there weren't any clear prints, just disturbed dirt and a few partial treads that could have been from anyone. Then the trees closed in. It happened fast. One second I had decent visibility on both sides. The next I was walking through a tunnel of branches and trunks, pressing close enough that my shoulders nearly brushed them. The light dropped. Not gradually. Just dropped. I stopped walking. The sound from the main trail was gone. Completely. I'd only been walking for maybe a minute. Maybe 90 seconds tops. I shouldn't have been far enough away to lose the ambient noise. But I couldn't hear anything. No birds, no wind, no distant voices or footsteps. Just silence. That bugged me a little. I turned to look back toward the entrance, and that's when I heard it. Emmett Williamson. My full name. Spoken once. Close. Aimed right at me. I froze. The voice came from somewhere ahead, maybe 10 feet into the trees on my left. Calm. Even. Like someone reading off a roster. I didn't move. Didn't answer. My hand went to my chest pocket and I felt the laminated card through the fabric. Don't answer if someone uses your full name. The protocol was clear. I'd read it probably 15 times since Melvin handed it to me yesterday. I hadn't asked him about it, and he hadn't offered any explanation. But standing there in the silence with my name still hanging in the air, I wasn't about to ignore it. I held still and listened. Nothing. No follow-up. no movement. Just that same empty silence pressing in from all sides. Slowly, I turned around. There was a man standing near the spur entrance, maybe 20 feet back. He wore a dark blue rain jacket with the hood up and his hands were in his pockets. I hadn't passed anyone on the way in. I was sure of that. The path had been empty. He looked at me, didn't wave, didn't move. Then he spoke. "I'm lost. I need help." The words were clear, polite even, but something was wrong. His mouth moved when he talked. I saw the shape of it under the hood, but the movement didn't match what I was hearing. The sound came from somewhere else, not from him, from behind him maybe, or above. I couldn't pin it down. It felt like watching a dubbed movie where the actor's lips don't line up with the dialogue, off by half a second, just enough to notice. I didn't answer. I took a step back toward the main trail. The man stayed where he was. His hands didn't leave his pockets. He didn't blink. "I'm lost," he said again. Same tone, same mismatched mouth movement. "I need help." I took another step back. My boot came down on a root and I had to catch my balance against a tree trunk. The bark was wet under my palm. The man tilted his head, still didn't blink. I reached for my radio, pulled it off my belt, and keyed the mic without looking away from him. "Forks, this is Williamson, I need—" The radio hissed, loud, then it cut out and I heard my own voice coming through the speaker. "Forks, this is Ranger Williamson." It was my check-in from 5 minutes ago, my exact words. But it didn't sound like a recording. It sounded like it was being read, like someone had written down what I'd said and was playing it back off a script. "Ranger Williamson," my voice said again through the static, flat, mechanical. I yanked the battery, pulled it straight out of the housing and shoved it into my pocket. The radio went dead in my hand. The man in the rain jacket was still standing there, still watching. I backed up another step, then another. My shoulders hit a low branch and I ducked under it without turning around. I kept my eyes on him the whole time. He didn't follow, didn't move at all. When I cleared the last of the tight trees and felt the main trail under my boots again, I turned and walked fast. Not running, but close. I kept moving until the main trail widened out and the trees pulled back enough that I could see actual sky. My legs felt shaky, not exhausted shaky, just that weird loose feeling you get when adrenaline starts wearing off and your body remembers it's been holding everything tight for the last however many minutes. The trailhead parking lot came into view around 4:30. My truck was right where I'd left it, the only vehicle there. I'd parked under a Douglas fir that morning because the spot had shade and I figured it'd keep the cab cooler. Didn't matter now. The whole lot was in shadow. I walked across the gravel and stopped about 10 feet from the truck. There was something on the hood. A stack of coins. Quarters, I think, even from that distance. Arranged in a neat little tower right in the center of the hood, directly over where the engine block would be. The metal caught the last bit of daylight coming through the trees. I didn't move for a second. Just stood there with my pack still on and the dead radio in my hand and the battery in my pocket. The quarters were wet, not damp. Wet, like someone had just pulled them out of the river and stacked them there without drying them off first. Water pooled around the base of the stack, a small dark circle on the green paint of the hood. I walked closer, stopped about 3 feet away. The stack was perfect. Every coin lined up exactly, edges flush, no lean, no wobble. Just a straight tower of wet quarters sitting on my truck like someone had taken their time to get it right. I counted them automatically. Didn't touch them, didn't get closer, just counted from where I stood. 8. I don't know why that number stuck in my head. It just did. 8 quarters. $2. Sitting on my hood in the middle of an empty parking lot after I just walked away from a man who didn't blink and a radio that played my own voice back at me. The protocol card was still in my chest pocket. I could feel the edge of it through the fabric. Rule number 8. Don't take coins from a neat pile. I walked around to the driver's side without touching the hood, got my keys out, unlocked the door and climbed in, shutting it harder than I needed to. The sound echoed across the empty lot. I sat there for a minute with my hands on the wheel, staring through the windshield at the stack of quarters. They were still there, still wet, still perfectly aligned. I started the engine and backed out slow, watching the hood the whole time. The coins didn't move, didn't slide or tip or fall. They just sat there. I put the truck in drive and left. The Forks Ranger Station was 23 minutes from the Hoh River trailhead if you didn't speed. I made it in 19. Donna's office light was still on when I pulled into the lot. I parked in the first spot I saw, grabbed my pack, and headed inside. The front desk was empty. Sharon, or maybe it was Sandra, I could never remember which, must have gone home already. I walked past and down the hall to Donna's door. It was open. She was at her desk with a tablet in front of her, scrolling through something. She looked up when I knocked on the frame. "Williamson, I need to report something," I said. She set the tablet down. "Come in." I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. Stood there for a second trying to figure out where to start. "Sit," Donna said, nodding at the chair across from her desk. I sat, dropped my pack on the floor next to me. The dead radio was still in my hand and I set it on the edge of her desk. Donna looked at the radio, then at me. "What happened?" Not a question, just a flat statement. "I found a spur trail," I said. "Half a mile past 5 Mile Island. It wasn't on the map, had a new sign, just an arrow, no text. I radioed you around 1400 to report it." "I remember," Donna said. "You said you were checking it out." "I did. I walked maybe 60, 90 seconds in. The trees got tight and all the sound cut out. Then someone said my full name from the trees on my left." Donna's expression didn't change. She just watched me. "I didn't answer," I said. "I remembered the card Melvin gave me. Rule 2. Don't answer if someone uses your full name." "Good," Donna said. Then I turned around and there was a man at the trail entrance, blue rain jacket, hood up. I didn't pass him on the way in. He wasn't there before. "What did he do?" "He said he was lost and needed help, but his mouth didn't match the words, like the sound was coming from somewhere else, not from him. I stepped back and tried to radio you. The radio started playing my own voice back at me, my check-in from 5 minutes earlier. So I pulled the battery." I nodded at the radio on her desk. Donna picked it up and turned it over in her hands, checking the empty battery compartment. "You followed protocol," she said. "Yeah." "Did you step onto the spur?" I hesitated. "Yeah, I did." Donna set the radio down. "How far?" "Maybe 100 feet, not more than that. Landmarks." "What was near the entrance?" I thought back. "There was a fallen cedar about 10 yards before the spur on the right side of the main trail. Big one, moss all over it. The spur branched left, maybe 20 feet past that." Donna picked up a pen and wrote something on a notepad. "Anything else?" "When I got back to the trailhead, there were coins on my truck. Quarters. 8 of them stacked on the hood, wet, like someone pulled them out of the river." "Did you take them?" "No." "Did you touch them?" "No. I counted them and left." Donna wrote again. Then she set the pen down and looked at me. "Melvin's been moved to administrative duty for the week. He's at the Port Angeles office doing paperwork and training updates." That hit me weird. I stared at her. "When did that happen?" I said. "Monday." "That's not right," I said. "I was with Melvin yesterday. We swapped batteries at the Elk Lake repeater." Donna's face stayed flat. No surprise, no confusion, just that same controlled expression she always had. "Melvin hasn't been in the field since Sunday," she said. "Check your duty roster. You ran Elk Lake solo on Tuesday." I opened my mouth, closed it. My chest felt tight. "I was with him," I said. "He gave me the protocol card on the trail. He told me every ranger gets one. "You have the card," Donna said. I pulled it out of my chest pocket and held it up. Donna nodded once. "Then you have it. That's what matters." She didn't explain. Didn't tell me I was wrong or mistaken or confused. Just moved on. "You're assigned to Lake Crescent tomorrow," she said. "Morning patrol, standard route. Check permits, log conditions, file your report by 1600. Any questions?" I sat there holding the protocol card. My brain felt slow. "No," I said. "Good. Get some rest. You can requisition a new battery from supply before you leave." That was it. She picked up her tablet again and went back to scrolling. I stood up, grabbed my pack, and walked out. Left the dead radio on her desk. I stopped by supply and got a new battery from a kid whose name I didn't catch. He didn't ask why I needed it, just handed it over and had me sign a sheet on a clipboard. The drive back to my cabin took 15 minutes. The sun was almost down by the time I pulled onto the gravel access road. My cabin was at the end, same as always. One room, kitchenette, bathroom with the dripping shower. I unlocked the door and dropped my pack on the floor. Sat down at the table without turning on the lights. Melvin had been with me yesterday. I remembered it. The hike, the battery case clipped to my pack the way he'd stopped at mile 3 and pulled out the card. The scratched lamination, the bold text at the top. Olympic Corridor Field Protocols. Donna said he'd been in Port Angeles since Monday. I pulled the card out again and set it on the table in front of me. Stared at it in the dim light coming through the window. The rules were real. I knew that now. Not a joke, not a test. Melvin had been serious when he handed me the card, and I'd followed Rule 2 today without thinking about it. Just heard my full name and didn't answer. But if Melvin hadn't been with me yesterday, then who had? I didn't have an answer for that. I got up and heated a can of soup. Ate it standing at the counter because sitting felt wrong. My legs were still shaky. I kept seeing the man in the blue rain jacket, the way he tilted his head without blinking. The mismatched mouth and voice, the 8 quarters on my hood. I washed the bowl and left it in the dish rack. Went to the bathroom and brushed my teeth. Came back out and lay down on the bed fully clothed with the lights still off. Sleep didn't come easy. I kept replaying it. The rain jacket, the voice, the sound cutting out on the spur trail. The radio playing my own words back at me in that flat, wrong tone. And Melvin. Or whoever I'd hiked with yesterday. I rolled over and stared at the wall. The protocol card was still on the table where I'd left it. I could see the edge of it from the bed, the corner of the lamination catching a sliver of moonlight through the window. The rules weren't a joke. I closed my eyes and tried to stop thinking. Didn't work. I just kept seeing the man's face, the hood pulled up, the hands in the pockets, the way he'd stood there without moving while I backed away. I'm lost. I need help. I pulled the pillow over my head and focused on breathing, in and out, slow and steady. Eventually, I must have slept, but it didn't feel like rest. I left the cabin at 6 in the morning. The sun was just starting to come up over the trees, not bright yet, but enough to see the road. I loaded my pack into the truck and checked the radio 3 times before starting the engine. New battery, fresh clip, nothing weird. The drive to Lake Crescent took 40 minutes. I passed through forks with the windows cracked and cold air coming in that helped keep me awake. I'd slept maybe 4 hours total, broken up into chunks where I'd wake up thinking about the man in the blue rain jacket or the quarters on my hood. At some point I'd gotten up and checked the protocol card again just to make sure it was real. It was. Storm King Ranger Station sat right off Highway 101, a small wood building with 2 parking spots and a trailhead kiosk. The lot was empty when I pulled in. I sat in the truck for a minute and drank the last of the coffee I'd made at the cabin. It was lukewarm and tasted burnt, but I finished it anyway. The Marymere Falls Trail started just past the kiosk. Standard route. 2 miles in, waterfall at the end, loop back. Donna had given me the assignment because it was easy in high traffic, which I figured meant she wanted me somewhere I couldn't get into trouble. That was fine. I clipped the radio to my belt, locked the truck, and started walking. The first half-mile was flat and wide. Gravel path, moss on the trees, ferns growing thick on both sides. Morning light came through in patches, and I could hear the creek running somewhere off to my left. I checked 3 permits in the first 20 minutes. All of them fine. An older couple with matching rain shells and trekking poles, a guy in his 20s wearing trail runners and carrying a DSLR camera in a padded case. Nobody strange. Around mile 1, I passed a family coming back down. Mom, dad, kid maybe 7 or 8 years old, dragging a stick along the wooden railing that ran beside the path. The mom was carrying a Starbucks cup, white with the green logo, and the dad had one too. The kid looked bored. "Morning," the dad said. "Morning," I said back. The mom smiled and stepped to the side to let me pass. "Beautiful day for it." "It is," I said. The kid kept dragging the stick. It made a rattling sound against the railing slats, rhythmic and repetitive. I walked past them and kept going. That interaction felt so normal it almost made yesterday seem impossible. Just regular people doing regular tourist stuff. Starbucks cups and bored kids and polite small talk. I wanted to believe that meant the corridor wasn't as bad as I thought, that maybe I'd overreacted or misread something. But I didn't believe it. I just kept walking and stayed sharp. At mile 1.3, the trail curved right and started a gentle climb. The trees got taller and the underbrush thinned out a little. I saw another hiker ahead, maybe 50 yards up, but they turned a corner and disappeared before I got close. That's when I saw the sign. It was on the left side of the trail, maybe 10 feet in. Wooden post, rectangular board nailed across it. The word "Detour" carved into the wood in clean block letters. An arrow pointing left into the trees. I stopped walking. The post was straight, no lean. The wood looked fresh, pale where it had been cut, and the screws holding the board to the post were bright silver. Phillips head, 4 of them. No rust, no dirt, no weathering at all. I touched the protocol card in my chest pocket through the fabric. Rule 6, ignore trail signs with fresh screws. I stood there for probably 30 seconds, just looking at it. The arrow pointed into thick trees with no visible path. I didn't see any boot prints in the dirt leading that direction, no trail markers, nothing. I walked past it and stayed on the main trail. My heart was beating harder than it should have been for the grade I was climbing, but I kept my pace steady and didn't look back. The fact that I'd used the rule and it had worked felt like proof of something, that I wasn't losing it, that the card was real and the rules worked, and I could navigate this if I stayed careful. I didn't know if that made me feel better or worse. The trail kept climbing. My breathing got heavier, and I unzipped my rain shell halfway to let some air in. The trees here were massive. Douglas firs and hemlocks with trunks thick enough that 3 people couldn't wrap their arms around them. Moss hung from the branches in long curtains, and the light had that green, filtered quality you only get in old growth. I crossed a wooden bridge at mile 1.7, short span, maybe 15 feet, with railings on both sides. The creek ran underneath, except it didn't run the right direction. I stopped in the middle of the bridge and looked down. The water was moving uphill, not fast, but steady. A constant flow going the wrong way, upstream, against gravity. Leaves floated on the surface and they were sliding backward, away from where the creek should have been draining. I held onto the railing and watched it for a long time, maybe a full minute. The water didn't change direction or slow down. It just kept going up. Rule 1. Don't drink water that runs uphill. I wasn't thirsty anyway. I leaned over the railing a little farther and looked closer at the creek bed. The water was clear enough to see through, maybe 2 feet deep, running over rocks and silt. And there, laid out on the bottom in neat rows, were quarters. A lot of them. They were spaced evenly, maybe 6 inches apart, in lines that ran parallel to the flow. I counted 12 in the section I could see clearly, but the rows kept going both directions under the bridge. The coins looked new, shiny. No algae or sediment on them. I backed away from the railing. My hands were shaking a little and I shoved them in my pockets. I didn't touch the water, didn't reach for the coins, just turned and kept walking across the bridge to the other side. The trail continued up through the trees and I followed it, putting distance between me and the creek. My phone was in my chest pocket next to the protocol card and I felt it buzz once, short and sharp. I stopped walking and pulled it out. Calendar notification. The banner showed across the top of the lock screen in white text on black. Battery swap, Elk Lake, 0900. I stared at it. I didn't create that reminder. I was sure. I'd checked my phone last night before bed and there'd been nothing on the calendar. I didn't even use the calendar app. I kept my duty roster in my pack, and that was it. I unlocked the phone and opened the calendar. The reminder was there, scheduled for today at 9 in the morning. The location field said Elk Lake Repeater, and the notes section was blank. The specificity of it made my skin crawl. Not just a vague reminder, but the exact location and time. Like something was watching me, like something knew where I was supposed to be. I deleted the reminder and shoved the phone back in my pocket. The trail ahead looked normal. Trees, ferns, gravel path. I could hear birds now, which felt like a good sign. I turned around to head back down toward the trailhead. I'd logged enough for the morning and I wanted to be somewhere with more people. That's when I saw the boot prints, 2 sets of them in the damp dirt running parallel, both mine. Same tread pattern, same stride length, same spacing. One set I'd just made walking up the trail. The other was beside it, offset maybe 8 inches to the left. I crouched down and looked closer. The prints were identical. Exact matches. They ran together for about 10 steps, and then the second set just stopped. No fade out, no scuff marks, no indication of someone stepping off the trail. They were just there, and then they weren't. I stood up and touched the protocol card again. Rule 4. Turn around if a second set of your boot prints appears. I turned around and started walking back the way I'd come without looking at the prints again or trying to figure out where they'd gone. I turned around and started walking back. The trail looked normal. Same gravel path, same moss on the trees, same ferns crowding the edges. I kept my pace steady and my breathing even. My hands were still shaking a little from the quarters in the creek and the phone notification I didn't set. But I shoved them in my pockets and focused on putting one boot in front of the other. The bridge came up after maybe 2 minutes. Same 15-foot span, same railings on both sides. I didn't look over the edge at the water. Didn't want to see if it was still running uphill or if the coins were still down there in their neat rows. I just crossed and kept moving. That's when I noticed the scratch. It was on the left railing, maybe halfway across the bridge. A fresh gouge in the wood, pale and bright, where something had scraped deep. The edges were sharp and clean. I stopped and stared at it for a second. I'd crossed this bridge maybe 10 minutes ago, and I was pretty sure that scratch hadn't been there. I would have noticed. I notice things. That's the job. I touched the gouge with my thumb. The wood was dry and splintered. Fresh. Really fresh. I pulled my hand back and kept walking. Past the bridge, the trail curved left and started descending. The trees were still massive, still covered in moss. Light came through in patches. Everything looked right. But that scratch bugged me. Not impossible that I'd missed it the first time, just unlikely. I reached into my right pocket and felt the roll of orange survey tape. Rule 3. Keep it in your right pocket. I'd been carrying it since Melvin gave me the card and I hadn't used it yet. Hadn't needed to. I needed to now. There was a fern about 3 feet tall growing next to a Douglas fir on my left, maybe 10 yards past the bridge. Big fronds, bright green, wet from yesterday's rain. I pulled off a length of tape, maybe 8 inches, and tied it around one of the fronds in a simple overhand knot. The orange stood out sharp against the green, unmistakable. I kept walking. The trail descended steady and easy. My breathing evened out. I passed a fallen log covered in moss and shelf fungi, past a cluster of sword ferns taller than my waist, past a tree with a trunk so thick I couldn't see around it. Everything normal, everything fine. Then I saw the orange tape. It was tied around a fern frond on my left, next to a Douglas fir. Same knot, same length of tape, same fern. I stopped walking. I stood there and stared at it for probably 30 seconds. The tape moved a little in the breeze. The knot was exactly how I'd tied it. Overhand, pulled tight, with the tail end sticking up at an angle. I turned around slow and looked back the way I'd come. The trail stretched behind me, descending into the trees. No bridge visible, no landmarks I recognized. Just trail. I turned forward again. The fern with the orange tape was maybe 6 feet in front of me. I'd been walking in a straight line. Hadn't turned around, hadn't backtracked, hadn't left the trail. I'd walked for maybe 5 minutes, steady pace, downhill the whole time. And I was back at the same fern. My heart rate picked up. I reached into my chest pocket and touched the protocol card through the fabric. Rule 4. Turn around if a second set of your boot prints appears. I looked down at the trail. The gravel was damp and soft in places, and I could see prints. Mine. Boot treads going both directions, coming and going, overlapping in spots. I turned around and started walking the other direction. Fast. Not running, but close. The trail climbed now. My legs burned a little and my breathing got heavier. I kept my eyes on the path and didn't look at the trees, didn't look at the ferns, just focused on moving forward and getting out. That's when my radio turned on. The click was loud in the quiet, sharp and metallic. I looked down at my belt and saw the radio clipped there, and the little green light on top was glowing. Active, receiving. I'd pulled the battery. I'd pulled it after the phone notification, shoved it in my pocket, left the radio dead on my belt. I was sure. I remembered doing it. I reached for the radio and flipped it over. The battery compartment was closed. I popped it open with my thumb. The battery was inside. Seated firm, contacts aligned, locked in place. Static hissed from the speaker. Then a voice came through. "Williamson, this is Calderon. You copy?" It sounded like Melvin. Same steady tone, same cadence. Same way he said my name with the emphasis on the first syllable. I didn't key the mic. I just held the radio and listened. "Donna wants you back at the station," the voice said. "She's got some questions about your report. About the spur trail and the man in the blue jacket." I hadn't filed a report yet. Donna knew what I'd told her yesterday in her office, but I hadn't written anything down, hadn't logged it in the system. "She's also wondering about the quarters," the voice continued. "The 8 you found on your hood, and the ones in the creek." I stopped walking. I hadn't told Donna about the quarters in the creek. Hadn't told anyone. I'd seen them maybe 15 minutes ago, and I'd been alone since then. "Come on back," the voice said. "It's fine. Just need to clear some things up. Michael's worried too. Says you haven't called since you moved into the cabin." My hands went cold. Michael, my friend in Tacoma, who let me sleep on his couch, who gave me the hydro flask before I left. I hadn't mentioned Michael to anyone here. Not to Donna, not to Melvin, not to anyone at the station. There was no reason for anyone to know his name. "Williamson, you copy?" the voice said again. I yanked the battery straight out of the radio and threw it into the trees. Didn't watch where it landed. Just pulled the empty radio off my belt and shoved it in my pack. My hands were shaking hard now. I started moving faster. The trail climbed steeper and my boots slipped a little on wet gravel. I caught myself with one hand on a tree trunk, kept going, didn't slow down. The stump was on the right side of the trail. I almost walked past it. Would have, except the coins caught the light. It was an old stump, maybe 3 feet across, cut flat and weathered gray, and sitting right in the center was a pile of quarters, 10 of them, stacked neat in a single tower. Except the top coin wasn't flat. It was tilted at an angle, propped against the one below it, balanced careful. I stopped and stared. The coins were dry. The stump was wet from rain, dark with moisture, but the quarters were completely dry, shiny, new. $2.50. I stood there too long. I knew I shouldn't. Knew I should keep walking, keep moving, get out. But I couldn't stop looking at them. The way they were stacked. The way the top one tilted just right. The way they sat there in the center of the stump, perfectly placed. Rule 8. Don't take coins from a neat pile. I wasn't going to take them. Wasn't even thinking about it. But I kept staring, and I couldn't make myself look away. That's when the sound cut out. Not gradual, not fading, just gone. All of it. The birds, the wind in the trees, the creek somewhere to my left. Everything. The forest went completely silent, and it felt wrong. Felt like pressure in my ears, like being underwater. I stopped staring at the coins. I ran. Didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just turned and ran up the trail. My pack bounced against my back, and my boots hit the gravel hard, and my breath came fast and loud in the silence. The trees blurred past on both sides, and I focused on the trail ahead, on the next 10 feet, on not tripping. I came around a bend and nearly slammed into Melvin. He was standing in the middle of the trail, hands on his hips, looking left into the trees. He turned when he heard me, and his face showed surprise. Normal surprise. The kind you'd expect when someone almost runs into you. "Williamson," he said. "There you are. I've been looking for you." I stopped so fast I almost fell, caught myself with one boot sliding forward on the gravel. My chest was heaving and my heart was pounding and I couldn't get words out for a second. Melvin looked fine, looked normal. Same weathered field greens, same faded cap, same broad face. He tilted his head a little and frowned. "You okay?" he said. I stared at him, at his uniform, his face, his hands. Everything looked right, except his boots. They were clean. Completely clean. No mud, no dirt, no water. The leather was dry and the laces were white and there wasn't a single speck of trail on them. The trail was soaked. Had been raining yesterday and the gravel was wet and the dirt sections were soft and muddy. I had mud caked halfway up my boots. Had been walking for over an hour. Melvin's boots looked like he just put them on in a clean room. "Yeah," I said. My voice came out rough. "I'm fine." "Donna radioed," Melvin said. "Said you were out here running Marymere. Wanted me to check in, see if you needed anything." I didn't say anything, just watched him. "Come on," he said. He gestured back down the trail. "Let's head back together. I'm parked at Storm King." He started walking and I followed. Didn't know what else to do. My brain was screaming that something was wrong, but I couldn't pin it down beyond the boots. And maybe the boots had an explanation. Maybe he'd just arrived, parked, and walked up. Hadn't been on the trail long enough to get dirty. Except the trail was wet. You couldn't walk 10 feet without getting something on your boots. We walked side by side. Melvin kept a steady pace, same as always. He didn't talk, which was normal for him. I kept my eyes on the trail and tried to keep my breathing even. That's when I saw his shadow. It was mid-morning, and the sun was coming through the trees at an angle from the right. My shadow stretched out to the left, long and clear on the gravel. Melvin's shadow should have been right next to mine. It wasn't. It was behind him. Maybe 2 feet behind. Moving when he moved, but not at the same time. Lagging. Just a half second, but enough to notice. I watched it while we walked, watched Melvin take a step, watched his shadow follow a beat later, watched him shift his weight, watched the shadow catch up and snap into place. Melvin turned his head to look at me. "Something wrong?" he said. His voice sounded right. His face looked right. Everything about him seemed normal except the boots and the shadow. "No," I said, but I knew. This wasn't Melvin. This was something else. Something wearing him, using his face, his voice, his uniform, but not getting the details right. Not getting the boots dirty or the shadow timed correctly. I kept walking next to it and didn't let my face show anything. And I started planning how to get away. I kept walking beside Melvin. Not Melvin. Whatever it was. "Donna's probably wondering where you got to," he said. His voice sounded right. Same cadence Melvin always used. Same slight rasp at the end of sentences. "Yeah," I said. "Probably." We rounded a bend. The trail widened ahead where it flattened out before the parking area. I could see sunlight through the trees marking the clearing. Melvin adjusted his pack straps. A normal motion. The kind of thing anyone does on a trail. "You need water?" he asked. "I'm good." His shadow was still wrong, still lagging. I kept my eyes forward and didn't look at it directly. "Trail conditions okay?" he asked. "Fine," I said. We walked another 20 yards. I could hear the highway now. Faint hum of traffic on 101 filtering through the trees. I stopped and bent down, fiddling with my left bootlace like it had come loose. Melvin stopped too and turned halfway back toward me. "You good?" "Yeah, just hold on." I crouched and retied the lace. Took my time, made it look real. Then I stood and brushed dirt off my knee, shifting my weight forward. "All set," I said. Melvin nodded and turned to keep walking. I slipped past him on the right, stepped off the trail edge, and ran. Not jogging. Full sprint. Boots hitting dirt and roots, and I didn't care about the noise or the pack bouncing on my shoulders. I got maybe 15 feet before I realized the pack was slowing me down, so I yanked the straps and let it drop. It hit the ground behind me and I kept going. Melvin's voice called out, "Williamson, hey." I didn't turn around, didn't answer. Just ran downhill with my arms pumping and my chest pocket still zipped around the protocol card and the orange tape roll bouncing in my right pocket. The trees blurred past. My boots slid on wet leaves and I caught myself on a trunk without stopping. The trail curved left and I followed it, breathing hard now, lungs burning. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the orange tape while I ran, tore off a strip with my teeth, stopped just long enough to tie it around a low branch, messy and fast, then kept moving. 20 yards later I tore off another piece, tied it to a fern, kept going. The tape was supposed to mark my path. That's what Melvin, the real Melvin, or whoever gave me the card, had said. Keep it in your right pocket. Use it when you need to find your way back. I tore off a third piece and looked for a branch. There was already orange tape tied to the sword fern directly in front of me. I stopped running. Stood there breathing hard with the torn strip in my hand. The knot was different. Not the overhand I'd been tying. This one was a figure 8, neat and tight. I turned and looked behind me. Couldn't see the tape I'd just tied to the branch 20 yards back. The trail curved and the trees blocked the view. I kept walking, fast but not running. Tore off another strip and tied it low on a vine maple, right at knee height where it'd be hard to miss. 30 seconds later, I came around a turn and saw orange tape on a vine maple at knee height. Same messy knot I just tied. But I hadn't been here yet. I stopped and touched the tape. It was real, damp from the air. The knot was identical to the one I'd made 30 seconds ago. I pulled my hand back and shoved the tape roll into my pocket. The rules weren't just protection. They were a script. Follow them, and you stay predictable. Tie the tape and the trail knows where you're going. Keep it in your right pocket, and whatever's out here knows you're playing along. I started running again. Didn't tie any more tape, just ran. The trees thinned and I saw the parking lot ahead. Gravel and painted lines and the restroom building on the left. My truck was parked where I'd left it, covered in dried mud and road salt. There was a second truck beside it. Same make, same model, Ford Ranger with the Park Service decal on the door, same mud pattern on the wheel wells. I stopped at the edge of the lot and stared. The second truck had a temporary paper tag in the rear window. I squinted and read the plate number. Matched mine exactly. A man stepped out from behind the restroom building. He wore the same green uniform shirt I had on, same boots, same radio on his belt. He looked at me and smiled. Professional. Helpful. "You okay?" he called. I didn't answer. He walked closer, hands relaxed, posture open. "Saw you come out pretty fast," he said. "You need a hand?" His voice sounded like mine, not identical, close enough. I backed up a step. "I'm good," I said. He stopped walking, still smiling. "You sure? You look pretty rattled." I turned and walked toward the restroom building. Not the trucks, not him, just the building. "Hey," he called. I didn't turn around, pushed open the restroom door and went inside. The men's room had 2 stalls and a sink, fluorescent light humming overhead, smelled like industrial cleaner and mildew. I locked myself in the far stall and sat on the toilet lid with my boots on the floor and my elbows on my knees. My phone was still in my chest pocket. I pulled it out and checked the signal. 1 bar. Enough. The Wi-Fi network list showed NPS Public. I connected, opened the internal Park Service app and found Donna's name in the directory. Tapped the message icon. Typed, 8 quarters on hood yesterday. Melvin on trail today, boots completely clean. At Marymere lot now. I hit send. The message showed delivered immediately. 3 dots appeared. Donna was typing. Her reply came through. "Melvin's been in Forks all week at the station. Do not approach anyone. Drive to Port Angeles Visitor Center now. No stops. Keep headlights off until you reach 101. I stared at the message. Typed back. "Which truck?" Her reply. "Yours. Mud on the wheel wells. If there are 2, take the one with dirt inside the cab." I stood up and unlocked the stall, walked to the sink and ran cold water over my hands just to feel something normal. My reflection in the mirror looked pale. Tired. I dried my hands on my pants and went back outside. The man in the uniform was gone. Both trucks were still there. I walked to the first one, mine, the one I'd driven here. Opened the door and checked the interior. The floor mats were caked with dried mud. There was a coffee-stained napkin in the cup holder and my old hydro flask wedged beside the passenger seat. I checked the second truck, opened the door. The interior was clean, floor mats spotless, no trash, no hydro flask. The air inside smelled like new plastic. I closed the door and walked back to the first truck. Got in, locked the doors, put the key in the ignition and started the engine. The radio turned on by itself. No static, just my own voice coming through the speaker. "Don't drink water that runs uphill." I reached for the power knob. It was already turned to the off position. My voice kept going. "Don't answer if someone uses your full name. Keep orange survey tape in your right pocket." I popped the radio faceplate and pulled it off. The wiring behind it looked normal. No battery, no obvious power source. "Turn around if a second set of your boot prints appears." I yanked the wiring harness out of the back of the unit. The voice didn't stop. "Don't use a headlamp on strobe." I shoved the truck into reverse and backed out of the spot. The second truck was still parked beside the empty space. I didn't look at it. I drove toward the exit. The radio kept reciting, "Ignore trail signs with fresh screws. Pull the battery if your radio turns on by itself. The access road curved through trees, one lane, gravel, and potholes. Don't take coins from a neat pile. The highway was a quarter-mile ahead. I could see the intersection where the access road met 101. I reached up and pulled the headlamp off my belt, the small LED one I carried for emergencies, clicked it on and switched it to strobe mode, aimed it into the rearview mirror. The flashing started, bright white pulses, 1 per second. The trees outside the window shifted, not swaying, shifting, like they were adjusting position between flashes. Something slammed into the tailgate, hard enough to rock the truck forward. I looked in the mirror. The second truck was behind me, headlights off, flickering, there and not there between the strobe pulses. I pressed the gas, and the engine roared. The intersection was 50 yards ahead. The second truck flickered again, closer, then farther back, like it couldn't hold position. I hit the highway and yanked the wheel left onto 101, reached up and flipped the headlights on, checked the mirror. The second truck was gone. I drove north toward Port Angeles with my hands locked on the wheel and the headlamp still strobing on the passenger seat until the battery died. Donna was waiting behind the visitor center in Port Angeles when I pulled in. 2 other rangers stood with her, Benny Mercado, tall, with close-cropped hair, and a woman I didn't know, dark braid, law enforcement uniform. I parked and got out. My legs felt shaky. "Williamson," Donna said. She didn't ask if I was okay, just looked at me and nodded toward the others. "This is Virginia Pierce, LE Ranger out of Port Angeles." Virginia nodded. "You had a rough morning." "Yeah." Donna stepped closer. "You touch anything on that trail? Take anything?" "No," I said. "I didn't." I stopped, reached into my pocket, right pocket, felt the tape roll and something else, pulled out 8 quarters. They were stacked, neat tower, sitting in my palm. "I didn't take these," I said. Donna pulled a latex glove from her pocket and snapped it on, held out a small plastic evidence bag. "Put them in here." I tilted my hand and let the quarters slide into the bag. Donna sealed it and handed it to Benny. "They're anchors," she said. "You counted them. That was the invitation." "I didn't take them." "Doesn't matter," Donna said. "You acknowledged them. That's enough." She looked at Benny. He nodded and walked toward a Park Service SUV parked near the building. Donna turned back to me. "You're off backcountry duty for the season. Desk work only. Port Angeles Station. You'll file reports and handle permit processing." "Donna." "The corridor registered you as a repeat target," she said. "It's not safe for you out there anymore." Virginia spoke up. "It's protocol. Once it starts counting, it doesn't stop." I looked at the evidence bag in Benny's hand. 8 quarters, $2. "Okay," I said. Donna's expression didn't change. "You did the right thing. Breaking the script with the strobe, that bought you time." It didn't feel like enough. It was. I spent the rest of the season behind a desk, permit applications, incident reports, visitor questions. I didn't hike alone, didn't go into the backcountry, followed the new rules Donna gave me, and didn't argue. It cost me. Confidence, mostly. The knowledge that I couldn't trust myself to see the difference between real and not real until it was too late. 2 months later, Donna called me into her office. Asher Bird's maintenance crew had pulled an unmarked signpost out of the Hoe corridor. Fresh wood, bright screws. They'd found coins buried in the mud underneath. "How many?" I asked. Donna looked at me across the desk. 7, she said, "not 8. 7. I sat there and felt my stomach drop. "It's adjusting," Donna said, "changing the pattern. So it's still out there." "It was always out there," she said. "You just gave it a reason to pay attention." I left her office and went back to my desk, filed reports, answered emails, stayed inside. The corridor could count. It could learn. And I hadn't escaped anything. I'd just changed the shape of the problem.